There exists a strange paradox associated with love and attraction. Often, the more accessible a person is, the less desirable they seem. But when someone distances themselves, stops seeking approval, focuses on themselves, something changes. Suddenly, they become irresistible. Why does this happen? Why do men often fall more deeply in love with women who create distance rather than those who pursue love? Carl Jung's theories on unconscious projection and individuation provide an intriguing explanation for this phenomenon. The allure of a person who steps back is not solely rooted in the feeling of scarcity. Deeper psychological mechanisms are at play. Independence evokes respect. Self-sufficiency inspires admiration, and emotional detachment creates a pull stronger than direct pursuit. If you've ever noticed that when you stop chasing love, love starts chasing you, you've encountered this phenomenon. The human mind values the rare or the unattainable, deeply rooted in our psyche and closely linked to the concept of projection, as Carl Jung described. When someone is out of reach, our mind assigns them qualities they might not even possess, creating an idealized image colored by our desires, and our imagination amplifies their allure. This effect is stark in romantic relationships, particularly in how men react to women who keep their distance. When a woman shows excessive interest, she ceases to be a mystery. A man feels she's already available, which can diminish her value in his eyes. But if a woman remains independent, unafraid of solitude, and not eager to please, she becomes the woman who commands respect and awakens a man's instinct to conquer. From a psychological perspective, attraction is often based on what we perceive as lacking. We yearn for what we don't have. This is especially true with emotions. The less frequently we experience certain feelings, the more desirable they become. When a woman doesn't reveal all her cards at once, doesn't conform to a man, and doesn't try to win his attention, she inadvertently creates a sense of rarity. This makes a man perceive her as something valuable, not easily obtained without effort. The same principle can be seen beyond romantic relationships. Consider a luxury item that's hard to acquire. Its price is high not just because of quality, but because of rarity. The more challenging it is to obtain, the more desirable it seems. In relationships, it's the same. If a woman becomes the center of her own life rather than someone's love story, her value in a man's eyes increases. He starts seeing her not as an accessible object, but as a person to be earned. Carl Jung posited that our emotions and desires reflect internal processes happening in our unconscious. We pursue what we perceive as lost, unattainable, or not fully understood. This explains why men often lose interest in women eager to please, but become captivated by those who go their own way. A man perceives before him not just a companion, but a person with depth whose love is to be earned. It's also important to consider biological and social factors. For centuries, men have been raised in a spirit of competition and goal-seeking. Attraction to a woman who doesn't leap into his arms awakens a man's hunter instinct. This doesn't mean a woman should play games or manipulate. Rather, her natural independence, self-respect, and lack of fear of being alone present a challenge. When a woman is emotionally independent, it doesn't mean she's cold or indifferent. It means she doesn't cling to relationships, doesn't make a man the center of her life, and doesn't sacrifice herself for someone else's comfort. Such a woman becomes a source of admiration because she values herself and doesn't need approval to feel significant. Men intuitively sense when a woman makes herself too available, which can lead to a loss of interest since the element of mystery disappears. But when a woman confidently navigates life without making a man the meaning of her existence, He feels her strength and inner wholeness. This compels him to see her as more than just an object of affection. This is why many men recall and yearn for women who have left their lives. Women who did not try to keep them at any cost, did not sacrifice themselves, and did not strive to please. They simply lived their lives, and their distance made men recognize their true value. Ultimately, the key to deep and conscious allure is not in playing at being unavailable, but in truly being self-sufficient. Men fall for women who remain an enigma, not because they are secretive or manipulative, but because they aren't afraid to be themselves and aren't desperate to hold attention. One of the strongest factors influencing attraction is uncertainty. Extensively studied in psychology, numerous studies confirm that when people are uncertain about how they are perceived, they feel a stronger attraction. Why is this? Carl Jung claimed the human psyche constantly strives for wholeness, completeness. When faced with uncertainty, our minds seek answers, filling gaps with their assumptions. In relationships, this is especially pronounced. When a woman remains a mystery, a man spends mental energy analyzing her, trying to understand what she feels and how interested she is. This process engages him more deeply, creating a psychological attachment. Consider a classic example. A man who quickly learns a woman likes him and is ready to do anything for him. At first glance, this should strengthen the relationship, but in practice, it often works the other way. The man feels no need to fight for her attention because it's already in his grasp. The attraction diminishes because the element of mystery is gone. But if a woman behaves differently, doesn't make herself readily available, doesn't center her universe around the man, and maintains her inner freedom, she becomes more desirable. He starts questioning, what does she think of me? Does she like me as much as I like her? This uncertainty immerses him more in emotional experiences, strengthening attachment. Psychologists refer to this as the Zeigarnik effect. It suggests unfinished situations evoke more emotions and remain more memorable than completed ones. When a man is sure of a woman, his mind signals, mission accomplished, and interest may wane. But if he doesn't fully understand her intentions, his attention remains captive. Jung also spoke about the anima and animus, the male and female aspects within each person. A man unconsciously seeks in a woman qualities he hasn't yet developed in himself. If a woman exhibits independence, self-sufficiency, and inner strength, a man feels there's much to learn from her. He's in awe of her and wants to be close to her, to absorb these qualities. But how can a woman create healthy uncertainty without playing manipulative games? First, it's crucial to have one's own life and not make a man its sole meaning. When a woman completely dissolves in relationships, she becomes predictable. But if she has her interests, goals, and hobbies that exist independently of the man, she retains an element of mystery. Secondly, she shouldn't fear saying no. Many women, eager to please a man, agree to everything he suggests, even if it goes against their desires. But a woman who's not afraid to assert her boundaries commands respect. She becomes someone who can't be won over by mere attention or sweet words. Thirdly, she shouldn't rush into emotional disclosure. It's important to give relationships space to develop naturally. When a woman gradually reveals her emotions instead of laying them all out at once, it creates intrigue. A man feels he needs to earn her trust, making him more engaged. Of course, balance is key here. It's not about intentionally hiding feelings or manipulating a man into jealousy. It's about letting relationships evolve naturally, maintaining room for growth and mystery. When a woman retains her dignity, respects herself, and isn't afraid to be herself, She becomes the one men think about even after a breakup. She's the woman whose value a man doesn't immediately recognize, but eventually realizes is rare. Uncertainty is not a game, but a natural state for a woman who knows her worth. She doesn't chase attention or fear losing a man, because her happiness doesn't depend on the relationship. This inner freedom makes her truly captivating. Men are intensely drawn to women who maintain their independence and don't put the man at the center of their lives. It's not an unconscious game or an attempt to manipulate the relationship. It's a natural consequence of such a woman not seeking approval from the outside. She already knows her worth and doesn't need anyone to confirm her significance. When a woman completely devotes herself to a relationship, forgetting her interests, dreams, and boundaries, she gradually loses individuality. A man who was initially charmed by her attention and care begins to take it for granted. This occurs because the human brain adapts to what is readily available without effort. There's a subtle but significant difference between a woman who simply cares for her partner and one who dissolves in the relationship. In the former, she remains an independent person with her own life, goals, and priorities. In the latter, she becomes reliant on the man and his reaction, which gradually diminishes her attractiveness. A man feels deep respect and admiration for a woman unafraid of solitude. He understands that if she's with him, it is by choice, not fear of being alone. This creates a completely different dynamic in the relationship. When a woman doesn't make a man her only source of happiness, he begins to see her as a person, not just a companion. Relationships built on healthy distance have greater depth. When a man feels that a woman stays true to herself, he doesn't relax with the assurance that her attention is guaranteed. This maintains his interest and involvement. This is why women who lead a full life develop their talents, engage in their passions, and don't try to please a man in everything become more attractive. Deep within the male consciousness lies the hunter instinct. This doesn't mean a woman should consciously create obstacles or play at being unavailable. The point is, a man wants to feel that he's winning over a woman, not because she desperately needs a relationship, but because she chooses to be with him, aware of her freedom. When a man meets a woman unafraid to say no, who defends her boundaries and doesn't depend on his attention, he perceives her differently. She becomes not just a partner, but a source of inspiration for him. Such women leave an impression on a man's mind. Even if the relationship ended, they're remembered as women whom couldn't be subdued because their strength comes from within. A woman unafraid to be herself and maintains her individuality in relationships evokes in a man a sense of respect and admiration. She does not seek external validation of her worth and does not place a man on a pedestal. This creates a unique dynamic in which the man does not feel he must be her sole source of happiness. This independence is not only a sign of inner strength, but also a factor that maintains a man's interest over time. When a woman maintains her independence, she maintains control over her life and emotions. She is independent of others' opinions and is not ready to compromise her principles to please a man. In such a woman, a man does not see just a love object, but a partner who values herself and her freedom. This attracts him because he sees not weakness, but strength. The strength to be oneself despite external pressure. Jung asserted that women's true attractiveness lies in their ability to remain in harmony with themselves. He believed that in interacting with a woman, a man unconsciously looks for qualities he hasn't developed in himself. A woman unafraid of being independent will attract the man who feels on a subconscious level that he has something to learn from her. Thus, the woman becomes a source of inspiration for him because her life is filled with meaning. Her desires and goals are not tied to the relationship, but come from within. Men attached to women who keep their autonomy become more respectful and engaged. They do not take these relationships for granted because they know the woman is with them by choice, not necessity. Such a woman helps a man grow rather than simply satisfying his needs. When a man sees a woman who dares to stay true to herself, he begins to truly value her. He understands that her happiness doesn't depend on his attention or affection. This provokes deep respect and, consequently, a strong attraction. A woman who doesn't lose herself in a relationship remains a mystery a man cannot instantly unravel. She piques his curiosity and desire to know her more deeply, which only strengthens his attachment. Thus, a woman's independence becomes not only an important factor of her attractiveness, but also a catalyst for the growth and development of the relationship. A man who meets a woman who maintains her independence will not forget her. She remains in his memory as a symbol of strength that does not need recognition or outside support. When a woman keeps her autonomy and inner harmony, she inevitably draws the attention of men who value and respect her as a person, not merely as an object of their affection. This independence becomes the foundation for creating a deep connection based on mutual respect and choice, not on dependence or manipulation. Men are generally attracted to women who can grant them freedom without demanding anything but genuine intimacy and understanding in return. Such relationship dynamics often turn out to be more robust and lasting. One of the strongest aspects of female independence is the ability to remain true to one's beliefs without changing them to please others or to please a man. In a relationship, this ability is manifested in establishing and maintaining personal boundaries, not allowing others to infringe upon them. This doesn't mean coldness or detachment, but rather the skill to protect one's identity and uniqueness. Men who encounter such a woman feel they cannot control her, which intensifies their attraction. A woman capable of maintaining her independence in a relationship doesn't lose her appeal over time. On the contrary, she becomes increasingly interesting and enigmatic to the man. When a woman is open to communication, ready to give her love and attention while maintaining her independence, a man begins to understand that she can be with him, but bleibt unabhängig von ihm. This freedom makes her more attractive, as the man feels that a relationship with her does not confine him, but provides space for growth and development. He does not feel pressure, but instead desires to grow with her. In his work, Jung talked a lot about maintaining one's inner wholeness despite external circumstances. A woman who preserves her independence exemplifies this principle. She doesn't allow her relationships to define her self-worth or her goals in life. Instead, she builds her life based on her beliefs and values. A man who meets such a woman sees in her not just a partner, but someone with whom he can share his life while maintaining his identity. He feels she'll be by his side, not out of need, but by choice. For men, it's important to recognize that a woman who doesn't sacrifice herself for the relationship can be much more loyal and sincere. She's not seeking in a relationship a way to fill a void within herself, but meets a man to share her life, staying true to herself. A man who realizes this begins to value her much more because he knows she doesn't need him for her happiness. This knowledge makes her more attractive and evokes a desire to maintain a relationship that doesn't limit either his or her freedom. When a woman remains self-reliant in a relationship, she doesn't allow the relationship to consume her entirely. She continues to develop as a person, strives for self-improvement, and doesn't forget her goals. This impresses the man because he sees in her someone he can build a relationship with and grow alongside. A man meeting such a woman understands her independence is not only a sign of her strength, but also an indication that she is not afraid to be herself under any circumstances. A woman's independence doesn't mean she can't be gentle and loving. On the contrary, she can be incredibly warm, attentive, and caring, yet she doesn't lose her inner strength. She can love and be present, but does not depend on love to feel whole. A man encountering such a woman understands that her love is genuine and real because she's not seeking salvation or affirmation of her worth through him. At times, men believe they can conquer a woman who completely gives herself to a relationship, but such conquests are short-lived. A woman who loses her individuality for the sake of a relationship may begin to feel a void, as her happiness depended on external factors. The man, in turn, begins to lose interest because she becomes predictable and less mysterious. This natural process causes relationships to fade. However, a woman who remains true to herself and her individuality will always remain a mystery to a man. She doesn't lose her value and will always attract his attention because she continues to be herself, regardless of time and circumstances. A man will constantly discover new facets of her personality and strive to understand her more deeply. This not only sustains the relationship, but makes it richer and more fulfilling. Thus, a woman's independence is not just a sign of her inner strength, but a factor that maintains a man's attraction and interest over time. A man who meets a woman who doesn't lose herself in a relationship understands she's valuable, not only as a partner, but as a person with whom he can grow and develop without losing his identity. Such a woman inspires not only admiration, but deep respect in a man. In relationships between a man and a woman, there's always a delicate balance crucial for building harmonious and long-term relationships. A woman who remains true to herself becomes not just a partner for a man, but a kind of challenge. She doesn't try to please him in everything or place him on a pedestal, but she doesn't shy away from love and care either. This balance between independence and love is what many men find most attractive in a woman. When a woman keeps her autonomy and doesn't fully depend on a man, her value increases in his eyes. Deep down, a man understands his attention and affection are not guaranteed because she's with him not out of necessity, but of her own will. This realization makes him strive for her attention, putting in effort to earn her trust. A woman who doesn't aim for the ideal of sacrifice and selflessness for a relationship becomes much more attractive to a man. Unlike many others, she isn't afraid to be herself. She doesn't need his approval to feel whole and worthy. This confidence in herself and her inner strength makes her a magnet for men, because they see in her not only a partner, but an individual who's not dependent on them for her happiness. All this forms a complex psychological dynamic where a man constantly tries to keep the woman by his side, understanding she may leave if she's not comfortable. He feels that her love isn't something taken for granted, and that he must respect her personal boundaries, desires, and needs. A man encountering a woman capable of maintaining her independence and identity feels his affection will not be taken as given. This compels him to work on himself, overcome his weaknesses, and become a better version of himself. A woman who doesn't lose herself in a relationship is often more valued and desired precisely for her personal strength and confidence. Men like it when a woman has her own opinion isn't afraid to express her thoughts and feelings, and importantly, doesn't expect anything in return. In such relationships, a space for mutual respect is created where each partner remains an individual and neither dissolves into the other. This is a healthy and stable dynamic based on trust and freedom. When a woman maintains her interests and activity outside the relationship, she becomes more interesting to a man. She can be independent regarding her career, hobbies, friendships, or personal goals. This inspires the man because he understands that she doesn't live solely for him, but for herself and her ambitions. This creates an atmosphere of respect and interest because the man knows she has her life, and he must strive for her attention, not take it for granted. This can be quite fascinating for him, since he feels he must be worthy of being next to a woman who is, in and of herself, a whole world. It's also important to note that a woman's independence doesn't mean she's incapable of deep emotional connections or doesn't know how to love. On the contrary, her love will be far more genuine and profound because she won't depend on the man for her sense of worth or well-being. She will love him for who he is, not for what he can offer her. This creates more genuine and equitable relationships where both partners can show their love and respect without fearing losing themselves. Men often say they don't seek a woman who will fully rely on them as a happiness source in relationships. They seek a partner who will respect their personal space, whose interests in life don't depend solely on what happens in the relationship. When a woman maintains her individuality and independence, she becomes a source of admiration for a man. This independence isn't an obstacle, but a foundation for relationships. It allows each partner to grow and develop. A man who understands a woman won't become his victim. In turn, becomes more willing to care for, support her, and develop a healthy relationship. Psychologically, a man in a relationship with such a woman feels more valuable and significant because his affection isn't taken for granted. This gives him a sense of importance and responsibility, as he needs to exert genuine effort to earn her attention and love. A woman who stays true to herself and doesn't lose her strength becomes not just a partner in a man's eyes, but also a stimulus for his efforts and growth. This ability of women to maintain independence in relationships lays the foundation for harmonious and long-term relationships. A man in love with a woman who doesn't dissolve into him, but remains a whole person, realizes she'll only be with him if it is truly comfortable for her. This realization creates more solid and genuine relationships where both partners continue growing without losing themselves. When a woman maintains her independence and inner harmony, she becomes not only more attractive, but creates a solid base for harmonious and long-term relationships. This doesn't mean she's incapable of deep attachment or care. On the contrary, her love is more genuine and deliberate. Men are drawn to women who respect themselves, maintain their identity, and do not lose their strength in relationships. Such relationships based on mutual respect and freedom create a harmonious and equal dynamic where both partners can grow and develop.